I'm thrilled to have the honor of introducing world-renowned ethologist and conservationist, Dr. Jane Goodall. She has been my personal hero for many, many years. Growing up in South Africa, my family spent several days every year in the Kruger National Park, the largest wildlife park in South Africa, enjoying the animals in their natural habitat. As a zoology biochemistry student at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg in the 1960s, I studied Jane's work on primates and was awestruck at what she had achieved, particularly as a woman in that field. At that time, as I can attest, it was totally dominated by men. So what is Dr. Goodall's story? Over 60 years ago, Jane Goodall first set foot on the shores of Lake Tanganyika in what today is Tanzania's Gombe National Park to begin her pioneering chimpanzee behavior studies. She showed for the first time that chimps make and use tools. In the last 6 decades, this research has transformed scientific perceptions of the relationship between humans and the rest of the animal kingdom. In 1977, Dr. Goodall established the Jane Goodall Institute, a global leader in chimpanzee and habitat protection through Jane's innovative community-led care conservation approach. The Institute operates through 24 global offices supporting groundbreaking science at Gombe, the home of the world's longest running wild chimpanzee study. In addition, the Institute leads the way in trailblazing science-driven programs, advocacy, animal welfare at its sanctuaries and beyond, as well as youth empowerment through Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots program, now in over 50 countries worldwide. Roots and Shoots celebrates its 30th anniversary this year. Today, Jane's mission has evolved into a quest to empower every individual to make the world a better place for people, other animals, and the planet we share. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Goodall had been traveling nearly 300 days a year on a perpetual worldwide speaking tour. In response to COVID challenges, Jane and the Jane Goodall Institute created Virtual Jane, a way to connect with audiences virtually from her family home in Bournemouth, England, where she grew up, through remote lectures, media interviews, countless recordings, and a popular podcast, Jane Goodall Hopecast. Jane is the United Nations Messenger of Peace and Dame of the British Empire. Her many awards and honors are simply too numerous to list, including becoming the Templeton Prize Laureate in 2021. A prolific author, her newest book, The Book of Hope, a survival guide for trying times, was just published this fall. The parallels to the work that Jane has been doing that we have in Hadassah International are strong, and we can draw much inspiration from all that she has achieved. It brings me great pleasure to welcome to the virtual stage a true global icon, Dr. Jane Goodall.
Well, thank you for that rather over-the-top introduction, because I'm really just one little human being among hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of other human beings, but I do my best. I am very, very glad to have the chance to talk to you and meet you today. I want to start off by saying how much I owe to my mother, because the way she brought me up, you know, I'm nearly 88 now, so when I was a child, girls didn't do the sort of thing that women do now. And when I said at 10 years old, I'm going to grow up, go to Africa, live with wild animals and write books about them, everybody laughed at me. How would I do that? I was just a girl. except Mum. And she said, if you really want to do something like this, you'll have to work really hard, take advantage of opportunity. And if you don't give up, then maybe you find a way. Well, as you know, I did find a way. Long story as to how I got there. But I had to save up. I hadn't been to college. We couldn't afford it. And anyhow, I met the late Dr. Louis Leakey, famous paleontologist, and he's the one who gave me this amazing opportunity to work with chimpanzees. So we now know, and the chimpanzees helped science to change its reductionist way of thinking, that we humans are not the only beings on this planet with personalities, minds able to solve problems, and above all, emotions. And the real difference between chimpanzees, other animals, and us is the explosive development of our intellect. I mean, you know, animals are way, way, way more intelligent than people used to think, not just chimpanzees, but elephants, dolphins, whales, dogs, of course, pigs. And now the latest wonder that's taking the world is a film which some of you may have seen called My Octopus Teacher. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's really worth looking at. It got an Oscar. So I was asked to address one or two topics in a few minutes. First of all, hope. Why is hope important? Hope is important because if we all lose hope, we're doomed. If you don't hope that what you're doing is going to make a difference, why bother to do it? And for me, hope isn't just sitting and hoping that something will happen passively. Hope is about having a vision and working towards reaching it, knowing that you're going to, if you work hard enough, and maybe get others to support you. So I would have stayed with the chimpanzees forever in Gombe, in the rainforest, learning about the interconnection of all living things. But in 1986, we had a conference that I helped to organize. By that time, there were 6 other chimpanzee field study sites. There's more now, but back then, bringing together the scientists to see how chimp behavior might change from one environment to another. And at that conference, we had a session on conservation, which was utterly, utterly shocking. Right across Africa, chimp numbers dropping, forests disappearing. We had a session on conditions in medical research labs, chimps used in circuses and so on. And I couldn't sleep seeing our closest living relatives, highly intelligent, highly social, in cages 5 foot by 5 foot, alone. And so I went to that conference as a scientist and I left as an activist. And that's when I began traveling the world. And that's when I began to realize the harm that we were inflicting on the planet, not just in Africa, but the harm that we were inflicting with our conventional agriculture, with the use of pesticides and herbicides, the way that we were polluting the air, water, and land, killing the soil, polluting the ocean with plastic, destroying forests. Oceans, forests, the 2 great lungs of the world. And this pandemic, which is still raging, I don't think anyone could have predicted it would still be raging by now, with different countries spiking all over again. And we brought that on ourselves by our absolute disrespect of animals, by invading their territories, their habitats, by hunting them, killing them, trafficking them alive or their body parts around the world to sell in wildlife markets everywhere for food, for food, for medicine, for pets, for exotic pets. And this was giving opportunities for viruses to jump from an animal to a human when, as you know, they may start a new zoonotic disease. Zoonotic diseases also come from our intensive factory farms, where billions of animals are crowded together in extremely cruel conditions. And point here, all these trafficked wild animals, all these domestic animals, every single one is an individual. Every single one is capable of feeling fear, despair, terror, pain. It's worth thinking about that. So anyhow, once I left Gombe and traveled the world, I met so many young people who'd lost hope. And they said we'd compromised their future, which we have. And there was nothing they could do about it. And that's when the Roots and Shoots program that was mentioned began. Now it's actually got up to 65 countries. Hundreds and thousands of young people from preschool, university, everything in between, more and more adults forming groups like the staff of a big corporation. And one of the things which I think links with what you're doing is when I raised some money after that 1986 conference to learn more about what was happening with the chimps. I did learn more about what was happening with them, the people moving further and further into the habitat, the logging by commercial companies from outside, the bushmeat trade, the commercial hunting of wild animals for food, people moving in with their diseases to which chimps, so like us, are susceptible. But I was also learning about the plight of the people, crippling poverty, lack of good health and education facilities, degradation of the land, and flying over the little Gombe National Park, seeing what had been part of a great equatorial forest belt by the late 80s was just a little patch of forest surrounded by bare hills, and realizing if we don't help these people find ways of living without destroying the environment, then we can't save chimps, forests, or anything else. And so that began our Take Care or Takari program, which is now in every village throughout Chimp Range in Tanzania, very holistic, including scholarships to keep girls in school, family planning, microcredit opportunities, as well as restoring fertility to the overused farmland and water management programs. That's now in 6 other African countries where JGI studies chimps. The latest chimpanzee study in Africa is in Mali. And with you somewhere or listening is Dr. Itai Rothman. And he's been doing all by himself to start with a sort of Takari type program, working with the Dinka tribesmen, changing them from hunting the last remaining chimps into being their protectors. And I've known Dr. Itai since I think he was about 10 years old, working in Israel to protect an endangered species of toad. So that's really all I have time to say for now, except that all these people that we work with to help them to find other ways of living, they've become our partners in conservation, understanding we're looking after wildlife, the habitat, not just to save wildlife, but for their own future. And so what with that, with Roots and Shoots, with understanding that if we lose hope, we're doomed, that's the message I have for you now, so that we have time for some questions. I'm sorry my voice is like this, but I'm on Zooms every day, all day since the beginning of the pandemic. This is my 3rd today, starting in Singapore, then the US, now Israel, then after this will be France. So anyway, I hope to meet some of you on this Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will open, really, this is, we thought about this moment as a moment of inspiration, and undoubtedly it is a moment of inspiration for all of us. We will open for questions. Patricia, Rob Dorfman, okay. Our president from Hong Kong. Rob Dorfman from Hong Kong. So Dr. Goodall, you understand where we're coming from. I am Jorge from Israel. Rob Dorfman from Hong Kong.
Thank you very much. And And Dr. Goodall, I sent this photo around while you were speaking. This is the cover of Time magazine, October 11th issue. And it says here, the enduring hope of Jane Goodall. So I just wanted everybody to realize that what we were hearing today was not just a passionate conservationist, but rather somebody who gets global coverage for the important work that she does. Could I just ask what your thoughts were on COP26?
I knew something.
Yeah. COP26, and particularly, you know, for young people who have great aspirations for tackling climate change, what's your message to them?
Well, my message to them is that many of them will be disappointed by the outcome of COP26, but then I don't think anybody really expected that it would be very different. I mean, this is the 26th COP, and lots of promises are made, lots of agreements are signed, but unless there's real teeth in the execution of those pledges, then nothing happens. And since the Paris Agreement, our emissions from CO2 and methane have gone up. So there were some good things done. The money pledged to help poor countries tackle climate change, rising sea levels, damage from hurricanes, flooding, wildfires, and so on. That was good, but I don't see anything in that agreement which says how the money will be parceled out, who will parcel it out, how it will be accounted for. So although it's disappointing, it's not a surprise, and there were some good things. But what was impressive was the number of young people who came to make their voices heard. They care, they understand, it's their future. And, you know, that's why Roots and Shoots is growing so fast. Because if young people lose hope, we're doomed, absolutely doomed. And I found with the Roots and Shoots groups, and Itai started a group in Israel. I don't know what's happened to it, but when young people get into a group with other people who care like they do, they're so determined. And I think Roots and Shoots is growing because the young people get to choose what they do. So they choose things that they're passionate about, but they must choose something to help people, something to help animals, something to help the environment, with the main message: every single one of us makes some impact on the planet every single day, and we can choose what sort of difference we make.
Patricia.
I had a question, because in some way the organizations you set up, or what Hadassah International has been trying to do, because we're trying to make saving the world relevant to people in different countries, and at the same time have them support our central hospital in Israel. And I wanted to ask you, how much of your time and energy it actually goes into forming these groups around the world, or how much of the Institute's energy goes into forming the groups around the world, and with you bringing the inspiration. So how does that work?
Well,
do you have a large team working with you? Is it mainly you and just?
Each country, each JGI, it has an executive director, it has a board, they're independent in the different countries. They have different priorities, but all of them, if they are able to put some money into our Africa programs, every single one of them does Roots and Shoots. That's mandatory, because, you know, but what they do depends on the country, depends on the religion, the politics, all sorts of things like that. So basically they've all started because I visit the country at some point and give some lectures and inspire people to want to pick up the baton and form an organization. Sometimes it's just Roots and Shoots in different schools. Often it starts that way, and that leads to a JGI. So then the teams that we build up of passionate people around the world, they carry the baton and continue to inspire.
Yeah, I want to ask a question. You know, it's because you said something that I think I will take as my inspiration note from your outstanding words, and that said, you know, that hope it's much more than believing something will happen. Hope it's about having a vision and on walking the talk, and that's, you know, very inspiring. But at the end of the day, it has to be also translated into a clear outreach strategy to keep an organization like this growing globally. That's in a way, I think what Patricia was mentioning is in a way what Hadassah International inspired and created by Hadassah, the Women's Science Organization of America, has been doing over the last decades, trying to increase, you know, our global outreach. So for the question I have for you is, what is the lesson or the advice that you would give to any organization growing globally, and on how we practically transform that hope into actual global action?
Well, I don't know. I mean, in my case, it's been going to the different countries and meeting people who get inspired. How do I inspire people? Telling stories, not facts and figures, because I believe that to change someone, you've got to reach the heart. So my mission is to reach people's hearts, to help people understand that we'll only reach our true human potential if head and heart work in harmony. Working with young people, they change their parents very often. But how to grow globally? I mean, the way I've done it maybe isn't the way other organizations do. It's just people beg me from, like the most recent one was Turkey. Jane, please, please, please. We would love to have a JGI here in Roots and Shoots because the country needs it. Well, pandemic had begun, so only on Zoom, but I've met so many people in Turkey, wonderful people. They've started and got registered. An independent JGI, Roots and Shoots, is spreading across the country. And I haven't even been there, but they heard about me. And of course, things like the cover of Time helped to spread Jane's visibility. And then I've just followed where it came. But your organization is different. You want to grow for a different reason. So I'm not really the one to advise you. You need one of these big multinational corporations, perhaps. I don't know.
Dr. Goodall, we want you.
Karen has another question. Patricia,
Okay.
if you let, yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, are there any specific projects, hands-on projects that have arisen as a result of someone going to the Roots and Shoots program?
Well, the Roots and Shoots, you know, starts in a school, and the young people choose their projects, and between them, they're my greatest hope for the future, because all around the world in these 65 countries, they're doing amazing projects. I mean, they've planted whole forests. They've changed dry park schoolyards into shady places. They've got campaigns to stop cars idling. They've got campaigns to raise money for earthquake victims, or they've gone out and helped people who are shut in pandemics who couldn't go shopping. They walk people's dogs. They volunteer in shelters. They volunteer to entertain children in hospital long-term with cancer or something who don't seem to have parents. It's just, you know, they're doing, between them, they're doing everything. They're working to save, contributing money to save chimpanzees. They're working on projects to save dolphins or whales or pangolins. They're spreading information. You name it, they're doing it.
Well, the important thing is to inspire them and then have them go out and do things that are important to them through their inspiration.
That's right. So apparently I was given, well, many, but two gifts in particular that have enabled me to do what I've done, other than having an amazing mother. One is a jolly good constitution. You know, I'm nearly 88 and my voice is not normally like this, but I've just been talking all day and all day yesterday. And secondly, a gift of communication. So I always knew I wanted to write books, and I've written many. I didn't know I could inspire people by talking. I was very shy as a child. And then the first time I had to do it, and I was so terrified. People say, "Were you scared in the jungle?" Oh no, nothing like my first big lecture. And then I found, actually, after the first 5 minutes when I couldn't breathe, that it was kind of going okay. And I'd say something and people would laugh and they'd somehow, I don't know, get inspired. So of course I've worked on it, but that's, you know, that's just me. And I can't advise people to go and inspire, really, and they can try. I mean, you know, I just was making use of who I am.
You have tremendous gifts, and we thank you. Thank you for sharing them with us.
We have a unexpected.
Can I just say something? This is Itai speaking here. Thank you. I just wanted to jump in because I was so honored and excited to participate here with you, with Hadassah International and Jane together. It really is amazing. I just wanted to say a few thank yous. Just really thank you so very much, dear Jane, for an exceptionally inspirational talk. And I really find it so symbolic that Dr. Goodall, the United Nations Messenger of Peace, presents to Hadassah International Board of Directors as Hadassah Hospital in Israel shows daily that peace is possible as they save the lives of Jews, Arabs, and Christians on a daily basis, and is a great beacon of hope for a better world. And we're taking care of nature means, just like Jane said, taking care of ourselves, our health. Sustainability will really enable us, just like we talk now, to protect our future. And I really look forward to fruitful partnership between Hadassah International and the Jane Goodall Institute. Right now, we're also established the Jane Goodall Institute of Israel. So it's a great honor, as you can see. And we're based at the Max Stern Israel Valley College near Nazareth. So it really is, together with Hadassah International, really dreams are coming true. So I just wanted to jump in and say thank you, Jane, and thank you, Hadassah International, for all the wonderful work that you're doing to save lives. So I just had to say thank you.
Good, well, it's lovely to see you, Itai. And lots of love to you, and give love to your parents too.
Oh, love to you too. Thank you. I'll pass it on.
I should add one thing about Roots and Shoots. We try as much as possible to bring young people together, usually virtually, but sometimes face to face, from different cultures, different countries, different nationalities, different religions. And the young people have learned. I don't think we've ever kind of talked about it much, but much more important than the color of your skin, your language, your nationality, your culture, your religion, much more important than any of that is the fact that we're human beings. And I think Roots and Shoots truly is spreading a message of it is possible to live in peace with each other. That's why I was made a UN Messenger of Peace, because of Roots and Shoots. And, you know, it's just one of the reasons why these young people give me hope for the future.
Dr. Goodall, I want to really thank you. Your presentation has been inspirational. We will take it with us for many years to come. And I will tell everyone with pride, I met Dr. Jane Goodall today. It's really been a pleasure. I think all of us feel that way. Thank you.
Well, as Itai says, why shouldn't we collaborate? And, you know, you can help develop roots and shoots in the countries where you go. Maybe we can introduce you if I get some information about what you're trying to do. We can collaborate. Why not?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting you all.
You too.
Thank you.
Good health
Thank you.
to you all.
Thank you.
Good health, Jane.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be well. Be well.
Yes, you will be well too.
That's it.